That we're starting the meeting of the Rotary Club of Raleigh, February 13, 2023, with the bell that is finally found on the Rotary Club. Which, as you can see, goes to the club that raises the most money from paying bells to the Salvation Army, and that was an honor this year. And so we get to keep this all year and polished and shine and everything. So you all did this, so congratulations, it's ours. I'll pass it around. You can pass around the table and have people take a look at it. I was going to do this out again, but I didn't think our speaker would like to see what's going on while he's speaking, so. There you go. I started the academy. Had really come up and start the ones with the education groups.
Thank you, President Tom. A couple of weeks ago, I did a brief reflection on the word together. Together is the first word in our Rotary International vision statement. Two words that follow that are we see. Together, we see. You know, it's often said that the biggest problem with adolescents is that they're selective listeners. I think the bigger problem is that we're all selective seers. We see the things we want to see. We see the things that are pleasant. We see the things that make us happy. We often turn a blind eye to the other things around us because we don't want to see them because they're disturbing. I often find that it's true that when the newscaster says the images you're about to see can be disturbing, they often are. And so we try not to look at some of those things because they are disturbing to us. And yet we are Rotarians. And as Rotarians, we choose not to turn a blind eye to the issues and the problems that confront our world, to the difficulties that people face in their lives, the work that needs to be done to make this a better world. As Rotarians, we choose to see, and having seen, we cannot turn away. As Rotarians, we choose to engage. And when we do, and when we engage in such a way that indeed we are able to address some of these issues and problems, such as water, clean water, economic development, the care of individuals, the polio. These are the ways in which we see problems and seek to address them. It's very important for us to continue to do that, because when we do, we see a different image as well. What we see is the face of a mother with tears in her eyes because the 2 drops of polio vaccine that have been given to her child mean her child will never get polio. What we see are the happiness of a mother who can see that her children live in peace because we as Rotarians committed to peace in our world. What we see are the images of children's faces that are filled with joy because there is clean, fresh water bubbling up from the ground in that well that we Unitarians put in to the village in Africa. So together we see, may the Lord give us strength to see all the days of our life. Amen.
Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of rain, for purple mountains majesty, of those fruits to play. America, God, shake His grace on me, and from sea to shining sea. R-O-T-A-R-Y. Thank you, everybody. And I believe we may have the guest from two here today. Harrison, Janet, yes, your table. Yes. Janet, come up here for a moment and just introduce yourself, if you don't mind. Sure. This fellow through the main line, serial number, what you do, that'd be bad.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Chad Daigle, originally from New Orleans, spent 20 years in Dallas, prior my way to Raleigh. I'm an executive in the tech business, or, basically, for the insurance tech business there. So, I'm happy to be here.
How did you find out about it?
I was a little involved, Rotary many years ago. Yeah, I'm just trying to find time to get funded.
Okay, very good. Yeah, good. Welcome. And Harrison, is there, I think that's the only, yes, we have, I know, candidates and they might be come up later. That's it? Okay, great. Well, welcome everybody. Remember the red buckets on your table, please donate fair change and benefits to the Mention Alliance of North Carolina, which is a member of the club. Every little bit helps. And remember also upcoming meetings. We're not meeting next week because of President's Day, but we'll resume on the 27th. With the head of the North Carolina Film Office, which should be interesting. See what's being filmed around the state and the future of all that. And then on March 6th, we have a fellow who's going to show us a bunch of train captains. So that'll be fun. And how to avoid tonight, we also have a board meeting, board office meeting. But any of you members who want to zoom in on the meeting, here's the Zoom address. You can email the club's email address if you don't say you're free to join in. We meet once a month, Monday evening of every month. Don't forget, tomorrow is Valentine's Day. There'll be Cupid's arrow shooting across the city, and don't be caught short. Remember your loved ones. However appropriate. Also, wanted to bring members up to date on our dear Linda Bonanno, who, as you know, underwent surgery some months ago now, not quite. But Linda still is not here. Tommy and Tiffany have been great moving down the front desk. But we've been talking to Linda, and she saw a doctor last week. So Linda is now back online. On the telephone, doing everything that catching up, correcting all the mistakes we made in the past month while she's been gone. So Linda, we know you're on Zoom, so great to have you back, and can't wait to see you back here in person.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you to all the people who called and sent cards and everything. Rotary is just more than just a community service club. It really is a family, and I really appreciate that.
Super. Also, our this month, you should be receiving emails from the committee chairs about committee meetings. Especially for newer members, please join a committee or two. Get involved. There's the membership committee, the fundraising committee, the public image committee, the finance committee, etc. So please just send an email to the club, Raleigh Rotary at gmail.com, indicating your interest in the committee, and you'll be on the committee. For example, we have a public image committee meeting on February 23rd. That's it. And we're scheduling other committee meetings. We want to get in place vice chairs for the committees before we start the new Rotary year that'll start in July 1st. So please give that some thought. Also, this is an interesting opportunity, and I'm glad Elsa is here. I was contacted by, well, let me step back. If you recall, earlier this year, we had Randy Weaver, Randy Fraser, and Patty talk to us about the Peace Fellow program at UNC Duke and elsewhere around the world. But later this summer, the Peace Fellows who have been selected for the program will be arriving. And so our district needs host counselors for those students who are coming to study to get their Peace Fellow degrees in this unique joint program. And the host counselor, you're not really, the Peace Fellow student will not be living with you all year. So it's not that. They may be staying with you for a few days after they get here until the program starts, and their lodgings are set by the program. They may need some assistance with that. But I recall last year, if you saw my email recently about how to donate, if you like, to the earthquake relief funds in Turkey and Syria, I mentioned that we've been contacted by one of the former Peace Fellows, and Elsa was his host counselor, and developed a very close relationship with him. And also, sorry to catch you getting your food, but is there anything you wanted to add about the experience of being a host counselor that might spark an interest in anybody here who wants to do it?
I can tell you, I think it's the best thing I ever did. And the week that he spent with me, Raleigh spent with me before he went to join the same classes, we really had a chance to talk and get to know each other. And it was like one of those just magic things. So we still talk with each other, and we just Skyped the other day. He's back in Israel working for a small nonprofit. He's raising money for the disaster in Turkey. It's probably one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. And you become like Mama Bear and Papa Bear, right? So we would meet once a month, and I would take him out for dinner. We would talk and chat and catch up and find out what he was doing in school and how he was doing and how he was enjoying it. And like I said, it was truly the best experience that I've ever had.
Didn't you help him navigate the DMV and get him the driver's license?
Oh my God, we actually drove up and down Redwood Avenue looking for places to buy your car, which at that time was really hard because of the pandemic. So to find a used car, we just got lucky and ended up in a small lot out of Glenwood, and the guy was just so wonderful to us. He held the car for a month until Roy could get all the papers he needed to go to the DMV, get his license, and then come back and get the car. So it really, he was very lucky, we were lucky, and we had the opportunity to do that. So it was wonderful.
Thank you, Elsa. So if you're interested, you can always contact Elsa to find out more. But Randy Lickey at rotary@gmail.com is the person to contact. And that was in this morning's newsletter as well, if you don't take this away. But it sounds like a fun opportunity to be someone's mentor for the year and help them through the year. So they inevitably will be from a foreign country, so you get to know somebody from abroad and help them navigate going to school and here. This is a list of upcoming district meetings, in particular, the district assemblies coming up for anybody who wants to learn more about what goes on at the district level and leadership positions and getting involved in the district. I encourage you to come to that meeting in particular. And this is also in this morning's newsletter if you want to take a closer look. And it's all on back to be to register and more information about each of these meetings. Next, we have a special section of the business meeting with, I believe, Patty and Eric coming up to talk about our own club's foundation. Eric will tell you about that, along with what we're doing, and also to recognize three of our members who have become Paul Harris Foundation donor members, and there'll be more about that as well. So Eric and Patty.
Braxton is here from along as well, and I didn't see Ned or Brad. So Ned or Brad?
That's right.
So first we want to talk about Paul Harris Fellows. As most of you know, Paul Harris Fellow is someone who's made $1,000 contribution to the Rotary International Foundation. And these two gentlemen have done so. And so they'll be recognized as Paul Harris Fellows today. I'm going to get the material for Patty will get the material for recognizing them. There's a certificate, a medallion, and a pin that they'll each get. But while Patty is doing that and presenting it to them, what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about what the Rotary International Foundation does. Patty really alluded to it very eloquently in his invitation earlier today, talking about the children receiving the polio vaccine around the world, about people getting health care that they wouldn't otherwise get, people getting access to clean water. Those are the kinds of things that the Rotary International Foundation does around the world. And that foundation is funded by folks like Braxton and Ned, who are here. So Patty, if you would go ahead and present them with their recognition. And I'm going to talk about a specific project that Rotary did. This was in Portugal, in a city called, name right? Silvas in Portugal. And they decided to put together a walk. Now, all of us have heard that we walk for hunger, walk for dementia, walk for things like that, where people are going to walk a certain distance to raise money. Well, these Rotarians in Portugal decided they were going to do it in an excellent fashion. So they set up a 75-mile walk. And to inspire people even further, they made it part of the Way of St. James, which is a historical trail in that region. I think it's not, and a few people are aware of that. And so they took and raised money. They raised over $14,000 for the project they were working on for Rotary. And that was to create a quiet room and a garden for children with attention deficit kind of challenges, children that are on the autism spectrum, children with Down syndrome, a calming environment for them is part of the treatment that's needed. And these Rotarians provided that. And these Rotarians reflect Ned and Braxton. So if you would please stand and recognize our latest two Paul Harris Fellows.
Yeah.
All right, secondly, now we're going to shift gears from global in Portugal and Africa to Wake County. And so can you put up the next slide, please? Right here. It's up. Okay, so we have a local club foundation, and that foundation works in the region, local area. Up here, you'll see some of the organizations we've helped. It's been mentioned, we've helped the Dementia Alliance, helping families who deal with the different challenges of dementia. The Green Chair, we were all shocked to hear the number of children in the Wake County school system who sleep on the floor in their home. And Green Chair provides furniture for families in a very efficient way. Made for Me is a great project where custom-made furniture is created for children who have special physical limitations that allow them to sit and read and do homework and other activities like that. A Gift for Life, obviously very important for giving heart surgeries to children around the world. With Smiles, one of our signature projects, a free dental clinic in the Raleigh area. The official name is the Rotary Club of Raleigh Dental Clinic. Go down there, you can see the sign up there on the wall, and a number of others. So that's the kind of thing that our club foundation does. Those are monies that are brought in, and this club manages it. Well, there's another way to be a contributor to the club foundation, and that's to join something we call the Heritage Oaks Legacy Society. What that stands for is people who have decided in their wills and their states to make some provision for Rotary International, Rotary Club of Raleigh Foundation. We suggested $10,000 minimum of that. But as you create your will, as you create your estate plan, if you include the Rotary Club of Raleigh Foundation in that, we would like to know that. We want to recognize you if you want to be recognized. If you want to keep that private, you can keep that private as well. We will not publicize that if you don't want to. But for those folks who are already in the society, we just had a first recognition luncheon. Here are the folks here, and you can see some familiar faces. I see Terry here today. I don't know if Sarah is here or not, but Terry is one of our members. And what I would say to you is, if you want to know more about joining the Very Good Legacy Society by remembering us in your wills, then get in touch with myself, with Patty, with Tom, with Linda, who can provide some additional information. If you have done so and haven't informed us, please let us know. There's no way we would know unless you inform us. So it's very important to do that. And as we were talking about this is part of your legacy, and I've asked my teammate Patty to say a word or two about legacy as part of this program.
In my business, we like to say that I deal with three things: hatching, matching, and dispatching. That was a good one, isn't it? Because we deal with baptisms, weddings, and funerals. I deal with a lot of funerals. Because I'm ready to say in public, but it's true, the last time I checked, the mortality rate was still 100%. So I'm sorry to be a downer, but reality is that each of us in this room will die at some point. And it's an opportunity for us to plan. I'm 75 years old. The scripture says 70 is the sum of our years, or 80 if we are strong. So I'm halfway through my mid-period there. Most people will be strong, but the reality is that I've already made my arrangements. I've already made all my plans, and I've one left to a number of charities that are important to me, certain gifts, including this charity here, our own foundation in this club. And I really urge you to think about that. It's important, it's critical. The work that we do, and you saw from various charities that we support, is important, and it needs to continue into the future. So think about the legacy. Think about the legacy you will leave. Think about the commitments you will make, and try to support our foundation in this club as part of that legacy planning. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric and Patty. And if anybody, excuse me, if anybody would like more information, please contact Eric or Patty about anything that they mentioned. And it was kind of nice. I was behind the computer screen, and we do have 17 of us members online meeting, watching it via Zoom. So although we like to have everybody as much as possible in person, people are traveling, they can't make it for some reason, but it's great to see the participation on Zoom. So thank you, Zoomers, for being online. And also, Leslie, I just want to make sure you get your history book when you came today. Oh, good, it was wrapped, okay. That's for you, already mentioned, great. So let's move on to some exciting news. We have about membership. Harrison Turner, our membership chair, would you like to come up here?
Yeah, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today on this beautiful Monday. I think this is the third Monday in a row that we have had literally standing room only here at lunch. So I know that we had the State of the Union last week. If I could say a little quick state of the union for the Rotary Club of Raleigh, it is strong. So thank you all for all that you do to be here in person. Zoomers, you've created a new word. I love it. Zoomers, thank you so much for being here as well. As you've heard highlighted throughout, the need in our community is strong. But we do so much from a club standpoint to support our community. But there's still so much work that needs to be done, which means we need more volunteers, more Rotarians, more people that are bought into living a life of service above self. So thank you all for what you do. So as you can see, we have a couple things to do today. First, we're going to do the induction of DeMonte Sanders. DeMonte, would you please join me up front? Thanks so much. I hope everyone's had an opportunity to connect to Monte. He's been coming to this your 4th or 5th meeting with us. He's phenomenal, great energy. Donante, your membership application has been reviewed and approved in accordance with our club constitution and bylaws. And now we will proceed in admitting you into membership of the Rotary Club of Raleigh and to friendship of Rotary throughout the world. Before we do that, we have a few questions for you. Question number 1.
Will you join us as we strive to live a life of service above self?
Question number 2.
Will you join us in our activities for service projects and fundraising activities in support of our community? How will?
And will you join us in supporting Rotary's efforts worldwide with focus on these 7 areas: promoting peace, disease prevention, providing clean water and sanitation, maternal and child health, basic education and literacy, economic and community development, and protecting the environment? And fellow Rotarians, will you join me in fostering and supporting DeMonte as he joins us in our pursuit of adding value to the community through service above self? If so, please say, I will. With that, DeMonte, I have the honor of providing you with your. Please wear that with pride. The Rotary Club of Raleigh, will you please join me in welcome? Please. Next up, we have our second reading for Candace Likens. Candace, will you please join me up front? Candace, this is her, she's been to a couple of our meetings. As a reminder to everyone who hasn't had an opportunity to connect with Candace yet, she's the professor of religious studies and director of spiritual life at St. Augustine University, professor of theology, ethics, and gender studies at Shaw Divinity, and music director and organist at Davis Street Presbyterian, as well as a mother of 3 that is homeschooled. So she's got a lot of time on her hands. So one of the things we like to ask everyone is, understand what your why is for, why Rotary. And I'd love to hear, what excites you? Why Rotary?
Mostly it's for service. Growing up, in California, most of my content is church, or the Black Pentecostal church. A lot of it was service and of course fundraising. But also hearing more about as far as clean water and mental health with children. Also, my 3rd daughter was born. She was 19 days underweight and 7 weeks early. And I was in a situation where, and it doesn't matter your financial status. I think Serena Williams talked about it as an African woman not being believed of having pain or going through something. And there was a doctor that did not want to listen to me, and she just gave me Tylenol. And there was another doctor, and like I said, a lot of times, sometimes those that are stepping in don't have to look like you. The doctor that stepped in was a white gentleman, and he said, "Look, you're right. This needs to happen." I know he pretty much helped in saving my life. I could immediately go on to have her. She was 3 pounds, 3 ounces, slowly breathing. She was home in 12 days, a little bit earlier. And we kind of went through some things at, do had a lot of students, which I fully support of student learning, but I ended up transferring to Wakeman Carey. And then I would say, also, I think what I love about service is sometimes it's great to be in a position to have the privilege to help, but when we can help having been in some of these positions. So again, going back to being a mother, I found myself, it was just me and my daughter, we were divorced. My daughter was 6, 3, and 1. And so now I had to go to social services.
I didn't want to go, and my mother told me that's what he's for. And so I was in those offices and I began to look around and I saw people that I know others would judge, for their situations. And so having been there, I said, no matter what, I want to be able to give back because I know what it's like to try to put food on the table for your daughter. And I say all that with that I know I had a privilege of all this education and through my mother's help, who was a single mother. To now being able to fully take care of myself and the whole world, you know, being able to travel and do all those things. So I'm grateful for Raleigh for that, because that was just 2017. So, service is important, especially with mothers. My work is in environmental justice, so a lot of that. So I know it sounds like I'm doing a lot, and it's really not work. You know what you're called to do, and the purpose and everything is aligned with what I do. So I'm really grateful and passionate. And I'm really here also to learn from all of you as well. You guys will be able to do it as well.
You haven't had an opportunity to make a change. I think our agenda is kind of get Tiffany. Tiffany is someone who doesn't need an introduction. Everyone here has seen how involved she is in the Rotary Club of Raleigh, how impactful she's already been here. And she has gone through the process of completing everything she needs to do, going from a red badge to a blue badge. So she's gone to outside meetings, fifth meetings, service socials, been part of service projects, helped lead service projects. Anything and everything she can do with Rotary, she's already done in our club. So I am so honored to be able to move and transition you from your red badge to your blue badge. Thank you so much. Everybody can take out your phones. Please mark your calendars for next week, which is February 22nd, which is a Wednesday, from 5:30 to 7. We're going to be over at Crafty Beer Shop in Lafayette Village. It is going to be our service social. Get an opportunity for everybody to come out, mingle, have a beer, and also provide an opportunity for us to give snacks to local middle schools. So any kind of bars or squeeze pouches, things like that, please make sure to bring those as you come out. Thanks, bye.
Thank you, Harrison, and Jumapé, congratulations once again. It's great to have you with us. You probably noticed we are not doing nosy neighbor this week because of our packed schedule this half hour, but Tommy has promised that at our next meeting on the 27th, it will be doubly intrusive and embarrassing. Expect a good one. Next, Richard, would you like to come up and talk about service? Sure.
Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. As many of you know, our service project this month is Wake Up and Read, where we collect books for Wake Up and Read. For those of you who don't know, Wake Up and Read is a coalition of nonprofits with a literary focus. Basically, their mission is to collect books for community centers and to help build libraries, home libraries for children. So they learn how to read, because the reality is the third grade reading level is a critical benchmark in child's education. And only 68% of Wake County children are at that level. And you would think in a metropolitan area like Raleigh, or the Triangle, we have a higher level, but that's pretty alarming. And that's, if you slice that down even further, it's even lower for some historically marginalized children. So we're collecting books to help build those community centers, help build those libraries. Now, the good news is we beat our goal from 2021, 110 books. We smashed that goal. Bad news is we're behind on our 2022. We exceed expectations by getting almost 1,700 books in 2022. So we're a little behind. So I'm asking for your help to collect books. I think it was Tom or Kevin shared with me, they posted on their Nextdoor, is that right? That post on Nextdoor, hey, collect books. I'll come to you. I don't have as much bandwidth as I did last year, but Tommy has offered to help. So I'll come to your place to work. I'll come to your home. We'll come anywhere to pick up these books. And our goal is 2,500 books to collect this month. And I've reached out to other Rotary clubs. We can do this, and this is a significant impact. And all of you folks are in business here, and I always preach. As far as economic development, this is economic development on a granular level. This is where it all starts. You know, if Raleigh wants to say in the top five of business journal, this and that, it all starts here. It all starts with literacy. I appreciate your support. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to accept if you want to go on Amazon and ship some books. There's an Amazon list, a link I can send you. But I'll be happy to go anywhere to pick up books. And Tommy's offered to help me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. So we've been to our birthdays and anniversaries. I did notice one of our Zoomers today. It's our only anniversary, but Cynthia Roberts. Cynthia, congratulations on your anniversary. You can see me. I can't quite see you from here. Congratulations. And birthdays, Bill Cardinell, Richard Watkins, Robin Hudson, David Coates, Bill Lambeth, who I heard from a mutual friend is doing much better these days, which is great to hear. Val Evans coming up. You're now next meeting. Happy birthday, and Carl Davis as well. So happy birthday and happy anniversary to everybody. So with that, let me move on to introducing our speaker today. As many of you know, in my spare time, especially soon after I retired, I became a certified master gardener through the North Carolina State Cooperative Extension Program. Here's my badge to prove it. And if you recall, we had our county agent coming in Jim Myers a couple of years ago. Well, essentially, I invited my boss to come speak to me because the Extension Master Gardener means I'm part of the extension program, which the speaker today heads up. So let me give you a formal introduction, and I couldn't, by the way, ask for a better boss, which, but let me give you the formal introduction for our speaker today. Dr. Richard Bonanno is Associate Dean of the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences at North Carolina State University and Director of the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Service. Dr. Bonanno started his career at NC State in the 1980s as an assistant and associate professor in the Department of Horticultural Science. He left the state in 1989 to return to Massachusetts, where he managed the family vegetable and flower farm that was started by his great-grandfather in 1910. He also worked part-time in extension for the University of Massachusetts, where his focus was on weed management and food safety, which also has served as president of many societies, including the Massachusetts Farm Bureau Federation, the Northeastern Beet Science Society, the New England Vegetable and Berry Growers Association, and the New England Council for Plant Protection. He chaired the Science Policy Committee for the Weed Science Societies nationwide, as well as the National Foundation for Integrated Pest Management, which came back to North Carolina and rejoined NC State in 2016, and is pleased to be here to support the people of North Carolina and explain what he, the Cooperative Extension, does for the people throughout the entire state. Please welcome Dr. Bonanno.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to tell you a little bit about what's going on at NC State with our Cooperative Extension office. But just a quick history of kind of where we're at. NC State is a land grant university, similar to Tech, Texas A&M, all of the ag schools, we should say, LSU, so forth. These all came about in the middle 1800s when there were only 3 public universities in the United States. Even though there were a lot of private ones, and all the people with some affluence ones too. There are 3 public universities. They're all in the South. Anybody guess what 3 they were? You didn't say Georgia or no. You went well. It's UNC Chapel Hill, University of Georgia, and William and Mary. Those were the only 2 public universities in the country in the mid-1800s. So this system that was set up was to create a public university in every state
with a focus on agriculture and mechanical arts. That's why some people still call A&Ms, like Texas A&M, okay. Basically, they're called land grants because Congress didn't have money to give to these states to help operate. They expected the states to develop land for the university, expected the states to build the buildings, but the goal was to give them some operating dollars. So the feds appropriated land that could be sold to homesteaders. And it was 30,000 acres of land for every member of Congress from that state. So if we had 8 council members and 2 senators, it was 300,000 acres to be sold for $1.25 an acre back then to homesteaders to create money to operate the university. Now, since UNC Chapel Hill was already here, they got the land grant. They got the rights to sell the land. And then when they realized what they get themselves into, you know, animals and manure and kind of some of the stuff they didn't want to do work on, they said no. And that's where NC State came from, but they never gave us the money. That's how it's did it. Digging down what they have and where it came from, but they kept the money for the sale of the land. Our land, by the way, was in Kansas. It was given to us by the federal government because there was no public land left in North Carolina to sell to homesteaders in the 1800s, as you might expect, in the colonies. So anyways, that's where we came from. So when these universities started, they really were all about teaching, allowing people, the public to come to school to learn about ag and mechanical arts. Once the kids got here, some of the faculty members started doing research, started creating new knowledge. This was a time in this country when, back at that point, probably 70% of the people in this country still lived on farms. And when the Constitution was signed, it was 85%. In 1920, it was still 40%. Now it's about 1.7% of the people in this country are farmers. So new knowledge was created to help people move. So the people that were leaving the farms meant that the people that were left on the farms had to produce more food. So we went from a time when the farmers had to produce enough food for themselves and maybe one other family to the point where farmers are producing food for themselves and a couple of hundred other families, in order to feed the vast population that we have with a limited number of farmers. So fast forward, the only people that were developed who were really benefiting from the research on these campuses were the people that sent their kids to school. And the rest of the farmers really didn't have access to this information. So little by little, everybody realized that in order for agriculture to progress, we need to get this information out of the universities and in the hands of the farmers. So that's really where cooperative extension came from. So between 1862, another act to create a research division was part of the USDA in the 1880s, and then cooperative extension eventually in 1914. So it created a formalized extension system, put in federal money that would be allocated to each of the states based on a formula, and that's where really extension came from. So the feds appropriated money, the states would match that money. And then in some cases, the county governments would also match that money to make the system work to where it is today. By the way, the Smith-Lever Act, Senator Hope Smith was he's from Georgia at that time. He was born in Catawba County, North Carolina, and then Asbury Lever was from South Carolina. So again, just like all public universities in the South, Smith-Lever Act came from the South as well. The Morrill Act, by the way, was Justin Morrill, who was a senator from Vermont. He's the one that put the sort of the works in place to get the land grant university to be created. So we have a very simple mission, NC State Extension. So this is part of what we do at NC State. It extends research-based knowledge to all North Carolinians, helping them transport science into everyday solutions that improve their lives and grow our state. Now I'll go into a little bit more detail about how we operate. But basically, we are part. So every land grant university has 3 missions. A lot of small schools just teach, and they don't have time to do research. Then you kind of go up a level and you have faculty doing research, generating new knowledge, and they're teaching. In the case of NC State, as one of the land grants, and all the land grants have this extension component, which means it is an intentional part of what we do to move that research-based information to the public. So as you know, we've got 100 counties in North Carolina, and then between Jackson and Swain is the Eastern Band of Cherokee. So we actually have an office there as well. So we have an office in all 100 counties, plus the Cherokee Nation. A few metrics about what we do.
So we've got about 850 people out in those counties. In our college of agricultural life science and state, we have 320 faculty. And their time is pretty much split this way. Half of everybody's of the collective amount of time, so 320 faculty full-time equivalents, half the time is spent on research. 25% of the time is spent on academics or teaching, undergraduates and graduate students, and 25% of the time is spent on extension. Now, that isn't everybody. Like when I was on the faculty, my appointment was 80% extension and 20% research. Some people might be just research and teaching, some people might be 100% teaching. But collectively, over our college, we've got about 160 FTEs just in research and about 80 in extension. And those 80 in extension are spread over about half the faculty. We have some faculty that are close to 100% extension, some that may be only 20% extension. But our faculty work in every area that's related to agriculture. And then in our counties, we are split between agriculture, 4-H, which are youth programs, and then also food and nutrition programs. We've got the state divided into five districts, roughly 20 per district. Every county has agents, county agents, and also someone that manages that county office. Usually it's one of the agents, and we've got 5 district directors that also help make this work. And as I mentioned, in our system with Land-Grant University, we have these 3 missions. And so they're integral and they're not separated. Now, unfortunately, it's only in the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, a little bit in the College of Natural Resources, which is forestry. Those are the 2 colleges that really are part of what's known as the Cooperative Extension System in North Carolina. And you see, I talked a little bit about our funding. USDA NIFA, the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, which is within USDA, funds all of the land-grant universities around the country, their agriculture programs. And NIFA's budget's roughly $2 billion a year. And that's what they call these formula or capacity funds, and then also competitive funds for agricultural research. As I mentioned, the states also match that money. And then we're very fortunate in North Carolina that in those counties, 99 out of 101 offices are owned by county government, paid for by county government. County government also pays roughly 54% of the salaries of all the people that are in the counties that work for us. So our faculty on campus, their dollars, if they're extension or even research, their dollars are split between research and federal and state dollars. But our county people, half their salaries are coming from the county, 25% from the feds, and 25% from the state government, which is pretty much how we're split up. So it's a true partnership, and really the cooperative extension is really us working together at these 3 levels from a funding standpoint. And so what we really try to do in extension, and this is easily sort of conveyed on the agriculture side, is the people in the counties really trying to identify the problems that are out there. And then if we don't have an answer already developed, then we need research to solve that problem. And then we need to get that research information back. So what's the hot item if you're a farmer, especially if you're a vegetable farmer right now? It's a invasive nematode, little microscopic worm called guava root knot nematode, guava root knot, and was imported from China. Some of you may have known that we produce 60% of the sweet potatoes in this country in North Carolina. And if you eat a sweet potato in Europe, there's a 60% chance it came from North Carolina. So we're pretty big in sweet potatoes. We've got 100,000 plus acres of sweet potatoes in North Carolina. Like I said, a lot of it's late here, a lot of it's even in other countries. This nematode comes along, and because sweet potatoes have a root, and because nematodes impact roots, they infest the roots of sweet potatoes and make them unsaleable. So we've got this huge project, currently $5 million right now from the feds, and another $5 million that just was appropriated from the General Assembly this past year to try to solve this problem. Guava root knot is considered an invasive nematode, which means it cannot be transported across state lines, nor can be transported to Europe. So if we don't get this under control, it severely impacts our ability to stay viable in this industry. And so a lot of money has been put into trying to solve the problem, figure out the fields where it's in, what agricultural practices we can use, and also control strategies for guava root knot. What happens after that in terms of people in the field that are working, that are harvesting sweet potatoes to identify it, people in the packing houses to make sure it doesn't end up in the boxes, and so that we can still have this viable industry. So, one small issue, but the reality is that it doesn't matter whether it's a hoof health issue in a goat or a cow, or whether it's an insect or infecting arugula. There is a faculty member in our college that is the subject matter expert in that area. It serves as a subject matter to all the people in the counties. And then if they need to develop new research to solve a problem, they do. So very, very integrated system. The other thing that's very unique about North Carolina, so the red dots are the county extension offices. The blue dots and the yellow dots are research stations in what we call field labs. And so we've got this whole array. There's actually 18 research stations and 7 field labs where we do research to solve problems. And the reason there's so many is because some of you know North Carolina is a very kind of diverse geographic place. If you're up here in the high mountains, Ash and Watauga and Mitchell, the climate is pretty much similar to Southern New Hampshire. And if you're all the way down here, the climate is not so dissimilar to Savannah, Georgia, and Jacksonville in some cases. So we need research stations in many, many different places, different soil types, different climates, different altitudes. For example, Fraser Firs, we're #2 Christmas tree producer in the United States. Well, Ashe County is the #2 Christmas tree county in the United States. Fraser Firs only go about 3,000 feet. We only have one research station about 3,000 feet, so that's where we do all the Fraser Fir work. And then other stations are different elevations, we go to different crops, blueberries, for example, we're not doing that work in the mountains, we're doing that work close to Wilmington. So, and the very, very interesting part about this is that in most states, the university runs all the research stations. But in North Carolina, believe it or not, the North Carolina Department of Agriculture owns 12 of those research stations. And it comes out of the NCDA budget, and they pay completely for all of the people that work there, the equipment, the land, and labor, and all of that. So it's a very, very interesting system. I've worked in all 6 United States, New York, Oregon, North Carolina. I've never seen anything like this, where the Department of Agriculture actually owns the majority of the research stations in the state. They are so connected and wanting to make sure, because agriculture is #1, take everything together, we all are processing for animals and so forth. Agriculture is just under $100 billion a year in the state. The industry that's second after agriculture in North Carolina is the military, 60 billion. Okay, it's not interesting. Okay. So this is my leadership team. So focus in family consumer sciences, which is all of our food and nutrition programs, kind of the old days of this home ec, but a lot of connectivity now. They're trying to help people that are especially on food stamps, now called SNAP, WIC, to try to make them better, help them make better food choices with the dollars they have for food. And so we lead that up, plus a lot of connections now between nutrition and human health that we're trying to work with the Department of Health and Human Services on. A big focus in agriculture, a big focus in 4-H, and then the rest of the team that helps us manage everything in the counties. We have to have separate HR. We have a separate MOU with every county government. So you can imagine, we're dealing with 101 different governments, including the tribe. And so there's always something unique or different that we have to deal with to kind of make that work. Just imagine the holiday schedules and all the other things. We have counties in the state that are very poor and don't have a lot of money to and struggle with those salaries. And then we have other counties that give 2 raises a year because they're growing so quickly. Johnston County, as an example. We have counties with minimum wages for county employees. Could be as high as $40,000, so that you can't hire anybody for less than that wage. And then we have counties that don't have, they just use whatever the regular minimum wage is. So just HR becomes a very big issue for us. Everybody else on campus works in our regular system through the counties. It's incredibly different. Now, the other thing is that in the South, so there was a second Morrill Act passed in 1890, and largely because the creation of these universities, these public universities in the South were segregated, and there was no other university. So in 1890, Congress passed the second Morrill Act to create a second university that would be historically black in states where they would need it. So they exist from Oklahoma to Maryland. And not in the West, not in the Midwest, not in the Great Plains, not in the Northeast, because that segregation wasn't there. And so those universities weren't needed in the rest of the rest of the country. So North Carolina A&T State University in Greensboro is our sister land grant. The 1890 land grants have a focus on underserved populations, so they're not meant to duplicate everything that we're doing on a statewide basis from the state. So they focus a lot, very similar to what we do with food nutrition programs, but they focus a lot on minority farmers and very small producers. And so collectively at the county level, we work together. So we're two separate universities. We kind of have two separate systems going on, but we have a single face in the counties, and that's NC Cooperative Extension. And you see the two logos of the two universities there. A&T doesn't have anybody. They don't have people in every county, but we use the joint logo in all the county offices. We've been doing that for decades, really. They have a joint logo and work in collaboration with North Carolina A&T. So. Just a little bit about some of our impacts. We hired a company to look at kind of what the impact is on the dollars that we get. My budget is between state, federal, and county, not counting grants, contracts, or receipts, or anything like that. It's about $80 million a year to run cooperative extension. At NC State, we bring in another about $50 million in grants and contracts, receipts and other dollars that come in. The commodity groups in the state, the corn growers, the soybean growers, the Christmas tree growers, they all put money into the university. So in addition to public funds, there's a lot of private funds that come in as well to help push this along. In agriculture, it's kind of easy to measure impact because you see it in practice or change or controlling a pest, and you can kind of see what that benefit is. But when you're dealing with food nutrition programs and you're dealing with youth, it's a little bit more difficult to try to figure out what your impact is. What's the impact of teaching somebody life skills when they're 11 on society, 20 years down the line. So we have to bring some outside help and help us do that. And the result is that $80 million really results in a $2.1 billion impact in North Carolina from the work we do in cooperative extension. And as was mentioned, it's not just the producers, so it also goes to the public. There's a lot of people in the public that they want a lot of help. They want to know about their lawns and about their vegetable gardens, and they want to raise backyard poultry. They want to do all kinds of things, and we got to make sure all that is safe. At any given time, any given moment in North Carolina, there are 250 million chickens that are being raised at any given moment. So when you go to the supermarket in any state, and the other states that help, there's chicken. Okay, same with beef, same with hogs. There's always bacon, there's always pork, and that requires a pretty robust industry. And so when homeowners want to raise animals, especially when there's things like avian influenza, you have to make sure that homeowner that's raising chickens outside, those chickens are exposed to migratory birds, that homeowner doesn't take down 1 million birds because they're not caring for their animals properly. So we get involved at all of these levels, and a lot of even the master gardening work, a lot of it that's focused on lawns and vegetable gardens and ornamentals and so forth. But the goal is to really help the public be stronger and better in their thought process, better use of worried about water, the environment, chemical use, and all of those things. So overall, we've got a little over 1,100 people between our faculty on campus and our people out in the counties to make this work. Last year, our expenditure in extension was just north of $133 million. As I mentioned, our focus is in three main areas: agriculture, food nutrition, 4-H. A very, very interesting fact about 4-H. It actually preceded extension because back when all this was happening and technology was changing, we were having trouble getting farmers to adopt new technologies to increase their yield to help sort of feed this growing population. So they realized they could teach it to the kids in schools and have things that, known as corn clubs, for example, whether after school or even during school, they would plant things, they would try different ways of feeding, they would try different varieties with the goal that when the kids went home, they would talk about it on the dinner table. So actually the youth in 4-H was a way to get technology from the universities to the farms even before we had extension agents. So a very interesting concept, but it actually worked pretty well. Just a lot going on. We've got a very diverse agriculture and a big focus of our efforts to really help farmers to be more productive and profitable. Our state is growing, the country's growing, the world is growing, the farmland is decreasing, the number of farmers are decreasing. And so just like anything else, there's a lot of people to feed. If you don't add technology to the mix, a lot of people are not going to have food. So we're very proud of the programs that we do in North Carolina. We do an annual report. Everything's up on our website. Our main website is just basically CES, which stands for Cooperative Extension System. .ncsu.edu is our main site, and so it's a little bit from our annual report. Just in closing up, lots of things in front of us, just like everybody else. The state's growing, population's changing. How do we deal with that population moving forward? Most people are not moving into, say, 80 the rural counties. They're moving into the more populated counties. We have the Zoomers. How is that changing how we teach, how we need to teach in the future, in person, hybrid, totally online, on demand, short videos, all these things, just like everybody else, and how you teach. And like everybody else, just thinking about finding people to work these days. Finding a workforce that you can hire, you can train, you can retain, you pay the right salary to. So we struggle with like everybody else. Thankfully, most people consider the extension a very rewarding job. So our turnover rate for the age group that normally turns over at 25%, we're at 10%. And I think it's because we give them something that they feel like they're making a difference in the world. And then we always want to improve our communication. So those are part of our strategic plan moving forward. So that in a nutshell is what we do. And happy to take a question or two because I know we probably have 3 or 4 minutes left.
Okay, great. Wait, stay up here a minute. I did want to, while we were talking, I saw one of our members was here. One thing Extension does do is, as we mentioned, to support small farmers, and they did this beautiful, very well done short documentary video of one of our members' farms, which is the, as I understand it, the organic farm at the highest elevation on the East Coast. Our longtime member Charles King has an organic farm up near Banner Hill, which is beautiful. I had the pleasure to visit very helpful. Extension did a wonderful job of the videos forecasting that. One question, I'll just spend time for community questions. Did Cooperative Extension become involved in the over the years the transition from tobacco to all the different crops and how's that gone?
So there was a time in the state when everybody, literally just about every farmer raised tobacco. They had a tobacco allotment. You got to have one to be able to grow tobacco. The tobacco's what paid the bills. It's what paid your mortgage, what sent your kids to college, and it was big business. I remember in the 80s when I was in the faculty, tobacco had dropped enough that turkeys became the #1 industry. It was like 1987-ish. I remember tobacco dropped to 18%, turkeys went to 19%. And that was kind of the beginning of that. And there's still a lot of tobacco production, but the tobacco production is mostly larger growers. It's much more mechanized. Our competition is Brazil, mostly. The market is China. And that's where a lot of our tobacco goes. And just like everything else, the Brazilians undercut, so we have to go to more mechanization to try to make that work. But still quite a bit. And as far as research in tobacco, NC State and Kentucky are the only 2 universities left in the country that still do research on tobacco. But for some of our growers, it's still an important crop. It still brings in quite a bit of money into North Carolina as an industry. But a lot of those farmers needed, as things changed and those allotments went away, were looking to do other things. And so whether it was getting into corn, soybeans, or wheat, or cotton, or peanuts, or whether it was going more into horticultural crops, just a huge transition that took place in the state. And some of the biggest farmers I know told me that this is the first year in the entire history of their farming family, generations and generations and generations, they are not growing tobacco. So it's definitely changing, yes.
Are you preparing for maybe sometime in the future that they'll be growing marijuana?
So yeah, so we right now have hemp program. We started working on hemp maybe about 4 years ago. It was industrial hemp. That's how it started, sort of as a federal program. And we don't have any sort of recreational marijuana or medicinal marijuana at this point. But hemp is basically It's exactly the same genus and species, just has a THC level that's below 0.03%. So that's the only thing that makes marijuana and hemp different. It's just the amount of THC. There are other cannabinoids in there, and so actually a lot of CBD that you see being marketed and sold, those are other cannabinoids that are in hemp, but not the THC. But so the production practice and everything we've been working on just because of the CBD market. So yes, we are prepared. A lot of that can be very much an indoor industry, and so it's going to be interesting to see what it looks like when it comes here. Daylight issues are making it flower properly, but the answer is yes. And so me and my research counterpart, in order for us to get the hemp permits to do all the hemp research that we're doing, we're the two people that hold the FBI background checks to make sure that we're good to do the hemp work. Okay, we have for one more. Carrie?
You mentioned 4-H. I grew up and got a lot of help from 4-H. Well, how is that? How's the 4-H program surviving in this fast changing world?
So there's a still will be piece in schools with sort of the eggs hatching, the lepidoptera programs and so forth. So there's 100,000 kids that are exposed to 4-H in schools. That's still big. There's still a lot of clubs, although some of the clubs went down a little bit during COVID, but they're coming back. And then the third piece of the 4-H camps, and there's 3 in the state. They about 3,000 kids at summer end at the 4-H camp. So I would say 4-H is pretty strong. Probably the biggest hit was sort of the clubs because people just couldn't be face to face. But we see that coming back, and that's across everything from STEM clubs to equine and other livestock and so forth.
Or Rick, from a former 4-H myself. Like to thank you very much for coming here and explaining all the wonderful work that you're doing. Here's a small token for appreciation, a coffee mug with our 4-way test, which is a model for service. And thank you very much for everything you gave us today. Thank you, everybody. Stand up. The things we think, say, and do is very all concerned. Will be better pensions. Will be better will all concerned.